Hello and welcome to the call. My name is Rich Cotter, and it's my distinct privilege to welcome Dave Neff as our guest speaker on the call. Dave is an emerald distributor with Avini Health, and he lives in Turner, Oregon. He has had a passion for natural health since he was in his 20s, and he is going to share with us his story and what captured his imagination about Avini when he first heard about it, and how that journey's been for him over the past year. So Dave, please tell us your story.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it, Rich. Well, where did it start? It's interesting. Back in my 20s, like you mentioned, I was privileged to read a study that was through the auspices of the Stanford Medical Library. And that study marked my life in a very, very interesting way. It gave me this deep desire to keep my body healthy, number one. And that in time interpreted itself into wanting to help other people be healthy as well. And so that became a side business, so to speak, where people were constantly calling me, asking me, what do I do for this issue? What do I do for that issue? And then I specialized in cardiovascular disease over the years, invested about $20,000 in a piece of medical equipment and flew around the country and Canada testing cardiovascular systems in the offices of various doctors, naturopathic doctors, medical doctors, and chiropractic doctors. And that was very, very intriguing to see how the biggest killer was working on people's lives and how it was unknown most of the time. Anyway, that said, after about, okay, I'm going to age myself here, after 50 some years of working in the natural health arena, along with other things in the corporate world, I saw things start to change a little bit, and I didn't understand it. It didn't come to clarity until relatively recently. And what I saw was different herbs and vitamins and minerals and naturopathic combinations, homeopathic remedies, et cetera, it seemed like they began to stop working like they used to work. And people needed more and more and lots more vitamins and minerals and things like that to try to help get things straightened out. And in that process of noticing that, bringing it up to now, about a year ago, well, about 7 years ago, one of my brothers developed an ailment that is characterized by some extremely bad cells thriving throughout his body, and he became stage 4. And truth be told, we thought we were going to bury him about 6 months ago. And it was interesting because about the time he was really wrestling with that, and by the way, he wrestled with it naturally for numerous years, spending somewhere in the area of $150,000 trying to get well. And that's my brother, John. And as he wrestled with it, all of a sudden I got a phone call that comes into me saying, Dave, you gotta know, you're going to want to know about this for your brother. And I thought, what are you talking about? And Sherry Knowles said, well, you know what? I don't know how to explain much about it, but I saw a little bit about a study or something like that. I don't remember all the details of how she connected with me about it. And but we knew each other and knew each other were involved in natural health. And so basically she connected me with Avini. And through that, I was able to read about 14 peer-reviewed studies or something like that. And when I was reading these studies, truth be told, the thought was, this is too good to be true. And usually when you think that, it probably is too good to be true. Then I had to step back mentally and realize that this wasn't somebody that was just trying to sell me something at all. This wasn't somebody with some hype. And in reading those studies, I realized this has to be for real. And so at that point, I thought I owe it to my brother to give this a try. So I ordered, I don't know, I think I spent probably $1,000 or so and a little over that and took a bunch of this stuff up to him and got him started. And bottom line is the real use of it happened around November or so of last year. And it was very, very interesting to me in that within about a month and a half, he went from virtually not being able to talk and being on oxygen 24/7 and all the way down to 102 pounds to suddenly he was asking questions about what that is and so on and so forth. Anyway, after an explanation, he took it very seriously, got his little Apple Watch on his wrist and set it for a buzz every hour so he could use Avini Cell Defender every hour. And then he set it for every half hour so he could drink 3 to 4 or 5 ounces of water every half hour and so on. Took it very, very seriously. 6 months later, some friends of his who truly thought he was dead see him in Costco and are in absolute shock. The story was very, very interesting in that scenario. But anyway, that said, John isn't completely out of the woods yet, but wow, he has changed dramatically. Big tumors and things, different types of glands that were swollen massively on the sides of his head and under his arms and things like that. Well, those have all receded and are all gone. He's only got one remaining bulge, and it's receding in his abdomen, and he's amazingly active now compared to what he was. Anyway, we are just absolutely thankful for this new discovery of Avini and Rick Deitch. Well, interestingly enough, another one of my brothers called me all of a sudden, and he was the one that went into the Vietnam War zone after I got out. At that time, they wouldn't let both of us in at the same time. And after I got out, he went in and he got too much Agent Orange, among other things. His name is Steve. And Steve developed some very, very, very serious prostate issues and called me up and said, "Hey, what's that you're doing with my brother John?" And so it was really interesting because he said, "Okay, I got to get this and start doing it." Because in 4 weeks, he was supposed to have a biopsy because the doctors were convinced he was out of control. And so he went in to have the biopsy, and the doctor said, "Okay, let's check your blood, check your numbers first." And his numbers originally, instead of being his PSA numbers, instead of being 5 or under for a healthy male, he was up to about, I don't remember, 12, 13, 14 or something like that. Well, after 4 weeks using Avini discoveries, let's just put it that way, he all of a sudden is down to 6. And the doctor was absolutely shocked. He said, "We won't do a biopsy right now. Let's just see what you are in 4 more weeks. 4 more weeks, he was down to 2. And don't think I heard that brother call me with being so giddy. Or anyway, both of my brothers are just thankful to the Lord for this discovery, to put it bluntly. And what was interesting to me is I had some injuries, Vietnam-related injuries to my hands especially, and developed some extreme painful situations in my hands, and was able to use Rick Deitch's new discovery, now named Plus Relief, and that worked beautifully for my hands. Well, I've been a runner all my life, and so I had injured my knees about 3 years ago, and in the process, those became extremely painful, and my VA doctor's answer was some oxycodone, and I didn't want to do that, so the pain was disabling. And so when I used the Plus Relief on my knees, what amazed me is my hands, within 15 minutes, I had some relief. On my knees, it took me, and so I encourage everyone to be very, very patient and use it properly. Follow the directions. I used it every 3 hours on my knees in my waking day for 5 full days, 5 full days. And at the end of that, I had the ability to run again, up and down hills and so on and so forth. So I have my running back, and it's been an amazing, amazing journey from that standpoint. Now, that said, I have reason to be excited, to say the least. I recognize after about maybe 6 months to a year in this related to Avini, I can't say in the business because I didn't know I was in a business really. I just knew I had access to some new discoveries. And I don't even call them products. I encourage people not even to call them products. Call them new discoveries. They're amazingly new discoveries. And bottom line is, when I'm talking to other people, and if I say, "Hey, I got this product that," "Okay, what are you selling now, Dave?" And people have known that I've been involved in the network marketing industry because I was involved in 9 of those, but I also had involvement with up to 41 different companies, all of whom none of those were network marketing. They were just regular companies who developed different types of natural remedies and vitamins and mineral combinations and so on. And so I used from a lot of these companies and was involved with them in order to get these things wholesale for the sake of my friends, relatives, colleagues, etc. And so most people's view, though, was that I handled so many different types of products, if you will. What's Dave selling now? Watch out, that type of thing. What I found now, by changing my terminology to, I've run into a new discovery that is absolutely amazing from several standpoints, then give them a couple testimonials. people are listening much more effectively. It's just been beautiful. So I would encourage people to use the word discoveries instead of products, at least initially. But anyway, I guess I further began to recognize Avini as an amazing and truly ethical business opportunity based purely on helping others. This is an opportunity to help others, either with physiological needs, problems, or financial needs, or both. And so that has been amazing to me. And I think when you look at it with an open mind, you'll see that things are so different here. First of all, discovery-wise, product-wise. Secondly, business-wise. There's a certain ethicness, okay, coined a new word, that I think is amazing. And so I guess I would make a couple of recommendations. First of all, for those of you who are involved in this as a business, or even if it's just for sharing with other people to try to help them be well, or if it's to try to earn a little bit of money so you can afford your products more prolifically, more conveniently, and so on, whatever it is, I would strongly recommend that you use the site, our training site, www.avinihealthtraining.com. It has amazing resources to help you learn just about anything related to these new discoveries, to the products, in other words, or to the business aspects, how to help people effectively. And another thing I would encourage everyone to do is to, in sharing with other people, ask questions and then listen. And I put that in my notes with capital letters. Listen, 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 showing deep, heartfelt interest in others. And when you get to the point where you hear something that sounds like an open door about these products or these discoveries, don't immediately attack that situation. In fact, just ask another question and listen, listen, listen even more. I mean, to me, it's an amazing thing when we show interest in other people, we don't chase them away. And interestingly enough, I found that people aren't seeing me like I was commonly seen, as somebody who's, uh-oh, what's he selling now? And I'm not selling these products. I am interested in seeking to help people from my heart, seriously. And by using these new discoveries, it has been an amazing change. And I'll have to say that one thing that came clear to me over the years, in the last 50 years, in the last decade, focus on the last decade, that's when I started seeing how things seem to, natural remedies and so on, vitamins, minerals, and so on, seem to not be working as well. That's where I started. Well, think about that. Why were they not working as well? And when this discovery came to the forefront of my mind, it became the answer to that. Now, for the first time ever, as my wife reminds me, instead of putting things into bodies, I'm taking things out. I'm helping people take bad things out of their bodies. And that is opening the door to the natural remedies and vitamins being much more effective. And in turn, they're having to use less and less of these nutrients instead of the massive amounts that I began to have to use in order to really stay healthy. Now I don't have to use anywhere as much of many things. And so things began to change dramatically from that standpoint. So I guess I would say that if you're seeking to encourage other people to learn about this, you're introducing it to a new person, whatever it is, encourage them by teaching, not by selling. Don't just say, oh, you got to try this. No, teach the science behind it. And you can do that beautifully, even if you don't understand the science yourself, because at our wonderful training site, there are there are hundreds of opportunities to listen to little recordings of testimonials, maybe likely one just like the person you're talking to needs to hear, because it's exactly the same type of problem they're having. There's scientific discovery explanations there. Rick Deitch has some beautiful recordings explaining each one of his new discoveries and how they work in the body and how ultimately they come to a point where it's going to help the body clean out so well that the body will begin to naturally heal itself, if you will. Now, I want to emphasize something, though, and at this moment, I think I will share the screen, so hang with me here a second. And so here, this is something I like to share with people, but I have to be very careful in how I'm sharing it. So in looking further into the serious problem that's out there, the problem of heavy metals and toxins getting into our bodies and how real it actually is, I ran across this recent article that reveals these sobering studies. First of all, as the screen says, it talks about toxic mechanisms of 5, and these are the 5 most common heavy metals that are found in the human body: mercury, lead, chromium, cadmium, and arsenic. And there's a wonderful 5-minute presentation about arsenic itself, and I love that one and use it in most of my presentations because it is so simple and it's such a quick analysis of that particular one. This article, though, deals with some of the studies. In fact, let me just take to the next page. I'll read you just a little bit of the introduction. Okay, so the industrial activities of the last century have caused massive increases in human exposure to heavy metals. Mercury, lead, chromium, cadmium, and arsenic have been the most common heavy metals that induced human poisonings. It's reality, people. Some of you are younger than I am. Some of you might be older than I am, but guess what? The younger generation tends to not understand this because it hasn't caused major effects in their bodies potentially yet. On the other hand, we are seeing more and more major problems come to pass through these human poisonings in younger and younger ages. My encouragement is don't wait until it happens in you. Understand the reality that this is happening and take steps. And we'll talk about the answer here in a second more prolifically. But moving on, we reviewed animal and human studies. Acute or chronic poisonings may occur. Listen to how they happen. May occur following exposure through water, air, and food. So I was flying down into San Jose, California a few weeks ago on a nice sunny day. And as the plane descended for a landing, I looked out the window, and across the way, here's this dark brown, black looking layer of air. I'm going to call it air. It's what was in the air that showed. And I realized this plane is going down into that. And when I get off the plane and I go, nice fresh air, scratch the word fresh, because I'm breathing that dark colored stuff. If you breathe today, you are getting bad stuff into your body. If you drink water, there's many ways you can filter it. Lots of people can't afford some of those ways, but you can filter it, but that doesn't necessarily perfect it. You're going to get stuff in your body that's bad. And if you eat food, interesting thought, you're going to get bad stuff in your body. And we could go into details on that, but let me pass that. Take a look at this. The bioaccumulation of these heavy metals, these toxins, leads to toxic effects on a variety of body tissues and organs. Heavy metals disrupt, now, a few big words here. They disrupt your growth. They disrupt the proliferation, the multiplication of cells. The differentiation, that's making of special cells, when your cells that are being developed are made for the liver or the heart or other special organs and so on. And the damage repairing process is disrupted, and apoptosis. If you don't know what that is, that's when your body is able to cause the bad cells in your body to, it disrupts them. It causes them to go into cell suicide, so to speak. So the bad cells don't stay, they go away. We need apoptosis to be happening, and heavy metals disrupt that. So what's the answer? What can we do about all of this? I am glad to say that Avini Health has the answer. And these new discoveries truly offer the solution to heavy metal toxicity. And it's interesting because all but one of these pictured products, discoveries, has zeolite in it that helps remove the toxins from the body and help mitigate the pain and damage that people are suffering. Let me just stop there as far as sharing the screen goes. Bottom line is, we need to clean ourselves out. And when we do so, we begin to enjoy the possibility of better health. The body begins to naturally heal itself, to naturally fix itself like it was designed or created to do. This has become very real to me, very, very real, especially seeing my brother John improve so dramatically, seeing my brother Steve improve so dramatically, seeing my own pain issues go away and allow me to be fully active again. It's amazed me tremendously. I can't underscore that. So a number of other things. So when I'm sharing this with somebody, and when you are sharing it with somebody, once you have asked lots of questions and you listen to them extensively, think of it in two aspects. The message you need to share ultimately is the problem, so they can understand it's not a lack of they're not eating enough of this vitamin or that vitamin. There may be some lacks in their body, but until they get the heavy metals and toxins out, you can't really determine that these days. Get the heavy metals out and they may be balanced. So priority one is teach them the danger, the problem that's out there, that's everywhere, that they're getting into their bodies, and that will in one day, sooner or later, become a major problem for them if they don't do something about it. So instead of waiting until there's a major problem, encourage them to move forward with cleansing now. Critically important. Okay, so that's the problem. Then show the solution, the Avini, what? Discoveries, the Avini discoveries. And to show them that, encourage them to watch one little video to start with, maybe one about where Rick Deitch explains Avini Cell Defender, or if it's something else you're focusing on to start with because of their particular issues, maybe where Rick Deitch focuses on that particular discovery, and help them look at those and then call them back, follow up. Boy, there was a beautiful presentation of follow-up just the other day. It's so critical. And you know, it's an area where I'm so weak. I get to explaining excitedly all these things and I forget to call them back. I just figure, okay, now they know about it, moving on. No, we need to call back and show care and answer their questions and see what it's doing for them, help them out. So these things are critically important. So short videos are critically important. I would also strongly recommend three-way calls. I've had different people call me and want to do a three-way call, and it became interesting because where the person maybe didn't listen to me the first time, when I did a three-way call and had them listen to Doug Dickey or somebody else, wow, they listened intently. In fact, one of the three-way calls just recently with a doctor friend of mine became an hour and a half long. And he still exclaims how much he appreciates that call and how it opened his eyes. He's an oncologist for that matter, but he's also become a naturopath type physician. But anyway, that said, I got to mention something that my wife reminded me of this morning, which I thought was very, very excellent. Turn objections into objectives. So the negative into a positive. So somebody says, for instance, on the cost, oh boy, I can't afford that. I mean, I could think to myself, well, what's your life worth? You know, or something like that. That would be kind of a snide comment. That's probably not the right comment, even though the thought does come in. And maybe it is something that needs consideration. But she was saying, think about it. The cost. Do you drink a cup of coffee each day? Do you go get some special drink at the coffee shop each day? Maybe you don't, maybe you do, but there are things that we choose to do that cost us. But think about this. Is there cost or savings in the fact that when you clean the toxins and heavy metals out of your body, you actually need to use less supplementation? You actually don't have to use as many herbs and so on and so forth. What about the loss of work from sickness that can come if you don't clean heavy metals out of your body? That could be an issue that costs you dearly. What about the medical costs that come later in life because you didn't clean things out? There's another major cost factor and could be very, very uncomfortable and so on. Well, the bottom line is there's a lot of things we can do as we consider this beautiful new discovery and new situation. I think I should wrap it up probably there. And maybe there's a question or two. I don't know. What do you think?
Dave, that has been wonderful. I think that has been delightful. Thank you for sharing your story.
Absolutely.
And appreciate the passion you have for helping other people. Is there anything that you would like to say to conclude your remarks?
I would say that there's no question in my mind that this opportunity to help people is greater and unlike any opportunity I've seen yet. I mean, we can go to our allopathic doctors, we can go to naturopathic doctors, we can go to homeopathic doctors, and I've used some of those in the past. But I am finding out that if we take the heavy metals and toxins out of our bodies, the chances of the body healing itself from those issues you're concerned about is absolutely astounding. I would conclude it there.
Well, thank you so much. And we appreciate everyone who has joined us on the call this morning. We really appreciate your passion for natural health. And it's such a wonderful thing to see all the people that you have helped. And thanks for helping us to help others as well. And so with that, we wish you all a wonderful Avini Day. Thank you so much.